It feels like we have a structural labor shortage out there where there are, 4 million fewer people, a little more than 4 million, who are in the workforce available to work than there's demand for workforce.
Where white-collar workers, professionals, are being laid off in greater numbers relative to the rest of the workforce.
Recession is approaching and layoffs are in full force. The economic downturn has been particularly severe on technology companies such as Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Meta. According to a website that analyzes job layoffs throughout the industry, tech companies shed about 159,786 jobs last year. Additionally, 98,100 workers have already been let go by tech companies in 2023. The execution of large layoffs of a number of tech organizations across the globe is being attributed to concerns about a possible global downturn and recession. Here are the most significant layoffs since the Great Recession. Number 1. Disney. Disney announced that it would reduce its employment by 7,000 employees. According to a SEC filing, it employed about 220,000 employees as of October 1st, with about 166,000 of them based in the United States and about 54,000 elsewhere. This would be equivalent to about 3% of those workers. These reductions followed those made by Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery in 2022, which together accounted for 3.6% of its 220,000 employees worldwide. During its investor conference call for the third quarter, Disney also disclosed it'll be slashing $5.5 billion in cost, of which $3 billion will come from content cuts, excluding sports, and the remaining $2.5 billion from non-content cuts. The cost-cutting efforts at Disney, according to the company's management, have already started since the previous quarter. Number 2. Google. On January 20th, Alphabet, the parent company of Google, announced that it would eliminate 12,000 positions. The decision to defer a portion of employees' January bonuses to be paid later in the year led to the Google layoffs, which are the company's largest ever and account for 6% of the company's global workforce. Alphabet CEO Sundar Pichai published a message on the company's website criticizing poor personnel choices made over the previous 2 years that were made to match periods of dramatic growth. In Pichai's message, it was also said that domestic workers would be entitled to a severance package that included 6 months' worth of health care and immigration assistance, as well as 16 weeks of compensation plus 2 additional weeks off for every year of service. Number 3. Microsoft. On January 18th, Microsoft disclosed its plans to cut 10,000 jobs, or around 4.5 of its 220,000 global employees. Satya Nadella, the chief executive officer of the Softwares Corporation, claimed in a blog post that the stagnant global economy had an impact on the $1.78 trillion market valuation of the software giant. Number 4. Amazon. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy announced the company will eliminate 18,000 workers in early January, including layoffs from November. Less than 1% of the global workforce would be affected, but only approximately 6% of corporate jobs. When significant cuts were first proposed in November, the corporation predicted that 10,000 posts would be lost, according to reporting from the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. The company's global workforce rose rapidly from 798,000 in the fourth quarter of 2019 to 1.6 million by the end of 2021, driven by the pandemic's success. Number 5. SAP SE. According to an earnings report released on January 26th, SAP, the largest software business in Europe, plans to lay off up to 2.5% of its global staff, or roughly 3,000 workers, as part of a restructuring that will cost between $250 million and $300 million. Christian Klein, the CEO of SAP, stated that the changes were targeted and will allow the business to invest in areas where it truly counts for SAP to be competitive in the future, including its cloud business. Number 6. Coinbase. According to a January 10 announcement by the cryptocurrency exchange company Coinbase, it laid off 950 employees. In order to reduce operating costs by 25%, this accounts for 20% of the company's labor. After letting go 18% of its workers in June, Coinbase has now announced a second round of layoffs. Number 7. Salesforce. Early in January, Salesforce revealed its decision to fire 10%, which is about 8,000 people of its 80,000-person staff. Mark Benioff, CEO of Salesforce, wrote in a note to the staff, "The environment remains challenging and our customers are taking a more measured approach to their purchasing decisions." Number 8. Philips. On January 30th, Philips made an announcement that it would be laying off 6,000 employees, or about 8% of its global workforce, which was expected to number about 77,000 people. Employee severances and termination-related costs will total $326 million for those affected. Last year, the Dutch health technology company announced the elimination of 4,000 jobs. Since the firm recalled sleep apnea products in June 2021, the stock price has dropped by about 65%. Chief Executive Officer Roy Jacob stated in an interview with Bloomberg Television that the action was significant and consequential, but they see it as important to handle the rising cost across the firm and the world, as well as to make them more flexible. Half of the personnel cutbacks will go into effect this year, and some of the layoffs will be made in the Netherlands. Regarding the recall of defective products, Philips is facing numerous claims for injuries. Researchers finding that silicone foam used in ventilators is connected to cancer and respiratory problems led them to allocate $885 million in funding as a result. Number 9. IBM. On January 25th, International Business Machine Corp announced thousands of layoffs, noting that they were related to the spin-off and sale of 2 business units that had been previously announced. The IT company provided a ballpark estimate of 3,900 job losses, or 1.5% of its employees. The units in question are Watson Health, IBM's healthcare analytics division, which is currently being sold to an investment company, and Kyndryl, an IT infrastructure services company that formerly left IBM in November. Number 10. Goldman Sachs. In a non-tech related announcement, Goldman Sachs stated that it will invest $275 million in the 3,200 job layoffs announced in January. The bank CEO, David Solomon, expressed sympathy for the very brilliant and devoted personnel who were negatively affected by the downsizing, saying that we feel strongly for them. Until the 2008 financial crisis, when they recorded the same amount of layoffs, this announcement was the bank's greatest workforce loss. Number 11. The Bank of New York Mellon Corporation. 3% of the Bank of New York Mellon Corp's employment will be eliminated according to the Reuters article from January 13th. There will be a reduction of about 1,500 positions from the bank's reported total staff, which was 51,700 at the end of 2022. Number 12. Bed Bath & Beyond. As it searches for buyers or loans to stay afloat, retail company Bed Bath & Beyond is severely impacted by the recession. The retailer announced on January 18th that it would reduce expenses by an extra $80 million to $100 million throughout the company, including an undefined number of layoffs, in an effort to combat declining sales. Over the previous 12 months, the company's share prices were decreased by more than 72%. For the 3 months ended November 6, sales were 33% lower at $1.26 billion than they were the year earlier. In addition, 32% less money was spent on goods in establishments that had been open at least a year. The business had declared in September that it will close 150 stores and lay off 20% of its employees in order to save money. Number 13. Vimeo. The very first of the year saw a round of layoffs at the American video hosting service Vimeo. The CEO of Vimeo stated in a memo to colleagues that was later circulated online that the layoffs will affect 11% of the company's workforce, including those in sales and research and development departments. In its December 2021 annual regulatory filing, Vimeo listed 1,219 employees. A third-quarter revenue of $108.1 million and around 1.6 million paying customers were reported by Vimeo in November 2022. To enable Vimeo to be a more focused and effective firm, functioning with the required discipline in an uncertain economic environment, the CEO said the decision was the correct thing to do. Number 14. BlackRock. 500 global jobs will be eliminated as a result of a $91 million restructuring, according to the memo from BlackRock Incorporated, the largest asset management company in the world. The revenue for the entire year decreased by 8% to $17.9 billion last year, and earnings per share decreased by 16% to $8.93. Additionally, the stock price of the corporation decreased by the most since the 2008 financial crisis. A filing with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission states that BlackRock had 19,900 workers as of September 30th. According to Reuters, fewer than 3% of workers will be laid off. Number 15. Spotify. As part of the management restructuring, the Swedish music streaming company said on January 23rd that it would lay off 400 people, or 6% of its global staff. The changes, according to CEO Daniel Ek, were made to put costs more in line and as part of the management reorganization. The growth in revenue for Spotify last year was outpaced by its operating expenditures. Some of the greatest names in the world are already laying off thousands of staff as the global economy falters. There are widespread reports of major layoffs being carried out by tech companies due to concerns about a possible global slowdown and recession. Employees who have recently endured more than 2 years of anxiety connected to the epidemic just want to know their livelihoods will remain intact, as layoffs and the prospect of a recession make headlines. But it can be really challenging to foresee that.